In a world full of distractions, there is one big question on every dog owner's lips.
How do I become more than just the person holding the other end of the leash?
We all get dogs with a dream in mind, a vision of the future. And if right now your everyday reality isn't quite that picture you had in mind, you are in the right place.
It really doesn't have to be this way.
You absolutely can and will be more to your dog than just the person who gets in between them and the world.
The key is you need to be more sexy.
More sexy than the neighbourhood cat.
More sexy than the jogger in the park.
More sexy than that half-eaten hamburger they just found on the floor.
And yes, even more sexy than the dog across the road.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Lauren.
Together we're Absolute Dogs.
And you're listening to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast. Hello and welcome to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast, the podcast that gives you real life dog training and life results. I'm joined today by the wonderful Anne. Anne is an absolute fanatic, and at the same time, and we've been friends for a good few years now, a number of years, and good friends. And I know that even though you're across the pond, which it is a little flight. I want you to tell everybody what you do, who you're about, why you're here, and actually what your passion is.
Oh, well, thank you, Lauren, for having me. I just love our chats. And so I've been, I've been involved in dogs probably not that long, actually. I got my first dog in 1999, a little Sussex Spaniel, and she introduced me to the world of dogs, and I had no idea about training, about anything really. So I'm one of these people that are always trying to learn and always trying to be better than I was the day before. And I have a little story. So I had a dog. He was a Sussex Spaniel as well. His name was FOD, F-O-D, Foreign Object Damage, which is kind of a funny name, but my husband's a pilot. So any pilots out there, you guys will get that. Anyway, so I went to a traditional trainer, and he was trying to teach me how to retrieve with FOD, and FOD would always stop short. And he told me to put a pinch collar on the dog, and he told me to reach in and grab FOD if he didn't bring the retrieve item all the way back. And it was fascinating. I went to do that one day, and my dog looked at me and said, if you do that, I will never trust you again. And I stopped dead in my tracks, and I took that pinch collar off, and I said, there has got to be a better way to train a dog. So I started researching and learning and got involved in clicker training. And I did really well, but there was still something missing. A little piece of the pie was missing. And that's kind of what brought me to Absolute Dogs. And it was that missing piece of the puzzle, that secret sauce. I remember taking your relationship deep dive class. It must have been 2015 or something like that. And I loved it. I was sold. That relationship, that the games, that's what it just all resonated with me. And ever since then, it's really just changed my training, my outlook on life. And that's me. And I'm a scent geek. So I think most people know that, or if you don't, I started, in search and rescue eons ago now, it seems. I took a little break, but I'm back. I'll tell you about that maybe a little later. Millie had her first search a couple of days ago. And it was pretty cool. But I teach scent work online and in person, tracking, detection, that sort of thing. So I'm kind of a scent geek.
You are absolutely our scent geek friend. I love what you do, and I love how we've shared games and learning and ideas, and I love how open and generous. I think we all are. I think it's good. I think we have a very, very good team, both you and us. And I love what I suppose that connection. For me, it's a great connection that we have. And like I said, I feel like I'm just chatting to my friend here, which is really lovely. I love that. And it doesn't feel like a podcast at all in that sense. And I think people love to hear that because it's very, very genuine connection. Now, what you said about FOD, I want to sort of touch base on, because I had a very similar experience with one of my border collie dogs. He's passed now. He passed 15. His name was Reef, and Reef was a really, really sort of sweet, driven, but I would say more of the complex style collies. Like he was just a bit more complex. He was always like thinking 10 things before you taught them, and he was just smart and paired very quickly. And very similar, a trainer said to me when he didn't retrieve, reel him in so fast like a fish, like literally jam him into your leg, like as fast as you can back with that toy. The second he goes to mouth it, the second he goes to, and literally within one rep of that, Reef would not go near that toy. He was like, we are done. My relationship with that toy is over. My relationship with you is close. And his first instant thought was, I'll drop the toy. I'm not going near that toy. My pairing with the toy is done. And so I worked, and it's weird. It gives me crazy, like goosebump feeling, like, I can't believe I even tried that. Like, and that's 15 years ago, the way that I was told to get a retrieve from Reef, and that I saw very quickly the damage in his eyes. And I saw very quickly the damage that would do to our relationship. And it caused me some level of anxiety afterwards, that I might have already caused that damage and it might be too far gone. Like even that one rep, it was fast and instant enough. And I know that I've learned enough about one-time learning, that one-time learning can be enough to do it. Like that's with people and with dogs, can be enough. Right. And so I love what you're saying, because for me, that was another pivotal point. It was the point of me leaving my trainer. And that's a big step to take when you're leaving your trainer, because you're saying that I can do it alone or without you. And that's a bold move, right? Especially when, like you, I hadn't been in it as long as my trainer. The thing I loved about hearing from what you said there, and I know this, is you're all in when you train something, and you're all in when you learn something. And actually I learned something today, and I learned that you got involved in this like way later than I thought you did, which is amazing, because you're someone that is very all in. So tell us a little bit about, I suppose, why you got involved in the Pro Dog Trainer course, because you've been involved in the Pro Dog Trainer course, but you're already a very good trainer, and you already are a good trainer for your own dogs, and you get involved with other people. But actually, why did you get involved in Pro Dog Trainer, and what led you to that path?
Yeah. So, well, thanks. I'm a trainer that's always trying to learn, I guess, and always trying to, always trying to advance my skills, get different perspectives. And I was already in the academy at that time, and I absolutely loved it. I loved what I was seeing. And so when the PDT program opened up, and I was here's a little bit of, you might not know this, I waited till like the 11th hour before I jumped in. But it was the best leap I ever made. I thoroughly enjoyed the course. I loved the balance it gave between the dog training aspect. But as you know, as a trainer, you're not just training the dog, you're training the owner. And that, to me, that part of the program is massive, because you can be the best trainer out there, but if you can't communicate it, it's just not going to work for that owner, that client that you have. You have to be able to communicate it. So I loved the blend. And I also love the real life, I don't want to use the word simplicity, but it's some types of training get so detailed into the minutia of say the science behind it, that if you're trying to convey that to a client, it's just going over their head and their just eyes are fogging over.
Yeah. It gets lost, doesn't it? It gets lost. And I think you're right. It's too much. I think the simplicity word, I understand that. I'd almost say straightforward, straight talking. Straight talking, practical. And it's funny. I watch people day in, day out here at the training center with their dogs. And what I love is we practically get on with dog training, and we try and lose the labels. We try and lose the names that people give this dog, reactive and aggressive and all of these other things. And actually we practically train the dog in front of us, don't we? That is what we do as pro dog trainers. That's what you do.
Right. Just train the dog.
Train the dog.
Yeah, just train the dog. Yeah. And
I
so,
remember
I mean,
I sat in, oh, sorry, I sat in on
oh no.
I sat in on a consult years and years ago. It's about 15 years ago. Well, probably about 12. And they spent 4 hours talking about the scenario, but at no point was the dog ever involved or the trainer ever involved. And it is exactly that. I'm like, no, we need to still train the dog. We still need to train the dog. It's important that we can practically. So I love what you say about straightforward training.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I thought it was a fabulous course. Being in the club now, I took it again. So had access to it again. So, I go back and I still revisit certain parts of it just to refresh my mind, particularly when it comes to the human coaching part, because I do feel that it is something I'm quite good at with my students and my clients and stuff. And so I always want to go back and refresh that, just to make sure I'm hitting all the buttons for them. But yeah, it's great. I loved it.
So I know you have loads of stories to tell us about search and rescue and the things that you've done and all of the journeys that you've been on. And to be honest, I love your stories. I find your stories really entertaining, exciting. It literally, I'm like at the sort of edge of my seat watching and excited about the next part. So if you could share maybe one or two of those stories about, I suppose, your search, your scent, your rescue work, whatever it might be, where maybe concept training and concept-based learning has helped, because that is what we do at Absolute Dog. So it links in very nicely to what we do. But I also want to hear your stories because I love them. I do.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you the story that just happened the other day, because it was Millie's first search. And Millie, my working cocker, she's been brought up on games. So from wee little pup, right? She's been playing Cardboard Chaos and Noise Box and just relationship games. And we do have an incredibly awesome relationship. So about 3 weeks ago, she certified in article evidence detection. And 2 days ago, we had our first search. Now, even when you're training, you can't mimic a search. It's like agility. You can't mimic the worlds until you're there, right? You can try as hard as you like, but it's a new environment. It's something brand new. So because it was a law enforcement activity, she rode in a different vehicle, not mine. She rode in a different crate, not mine. No problem at all. Totally comfortable in an entirely new scenario. We got to our search location. We had drones flying. She'd never seen a drone, no problems whatsoever. We had the dive team members out, and they were suiting up in their dive gear, funny looking people. No problems. Yeah, novelty, not a big deal. Same with the searchers with metal detectors. Yeah, so they have a weird thing on their arm. Novelty, not a big deal. Completely focused the entire time she was working, worked beautifully. But we had never obviously trained in that situation because that was her first time in that situation. Even, it's hard to mimic that, like I said. And she just went into it like, yeah, been doing this, forever. Not a big deal. It was so cool that all of those concepts, and now when I'm training her or any of my dogs or my clients' dogs, I used to think in behaviors, and now I don't. In a sense, I look at the dog, I look at the struggle, and what pops for me is what concept is missing. What concept do we have to grow in that dog and in that team? And then the behavior part's easy. Right? The teaching the skill part actually comes relatively quickly. And I think in concepts now, it's just really cool. And I was so pleased. She did great.
Number one, well done. I mean, that is incredible. Number two, I had a very similar experience today. I was chatting to a teacher. We're taking Eliza to a new school in the next year or so. Haven't decided exactly when, but she will change schools at the year 6-7 mark in the UK. And because they change sort of like a big school, really, they go to a big school. And so we were chatting to the teacher, and I said, he's like, what do you want and what you're looking for? And I'm like, I want her to love learning. I want her to have passion. I want to effectively what I want to teach is desire and motivation, because if they've got that, the learning, the behavior, whatever it might be, whether that's writing or maths or science or whatever else it might be, those come so naturally if you've got grit, determination, and passion, and you have a bit of motivation behind you. Everything else will follow through if those things are there. Everything else follows through. And I think that for me is, if you're flexible, if you're adaptable, if you're independent, it's all the concepts we talk about.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of a mind blow, I think, for people that would be new to it. But once you kind of go, wait a minute, I get it. Once you get it, you get it. And it is not only life-changing, I think, for the dog, but it's life-changing for us as humans. That was the other thing I loved about the PDT program, was it was more about not just dog training, but there was a lot of life lessons, a lot of life coaching in there, a lot from you, Lauren, and it's really good. It's really, really good. And I'm a pretty much of a silver lining type person anyways, always trying to stay positive and optimistic, but it just kind of boosted it. And I know that, following on the Academy page and stuff, I see it all the time. When people are a little down, they go find a live that you've done or Tom has done, and it perks you up. It makes you feel good.
I love what you said there, because I think I would agree, it dials it up a notch, or it takes it up a notch. So you're already a great energy to be around. I've always felt that. And I've loved that we've been lucky enough to meet in person before these crazy rules that we've had for the last few years have been around. So I love that we've had that fantastic opportunity. And at the same time, I also think that you're already very excitable and happy and bouncy and energetic and optimistic, really, as a person. You're very much what we do. And at the same time, you definitely have gone up a notch in what you do. I think you've gone up a notch just I see it. It's amazing. And that sort of transformation. So if we think about transformation, what's your favorite transformation that you have achieved, either yourself or with your students, as a pro dog trainer?
Oh gosh, this one's a hard one, because I think I get excited every time with my students when they have a victory, a little win. One of the biggest things I see in general from scent work that I teach is the confidence that it boosts in the dog, and the handler understanding their dog. Understanding that their dog is seeing the world differently than they are, not through vision, but through olfaction. So I think that whole relationship boost through scent work is awesome. But I did have a couple that have really kind of stand out. From one is a lady, she lives in Belgium. And that's what I love about teaching online, is you get to teach all over the world. And she has a couple of dogs, and it's been fabulous watching her grow as a trainer, and her relationship with her dogs grow as well. It just kind of warms my heart. And then another gal who lives in the States, she's a search and rescue handler, and she was about to quit search and rescue. She joined into the academy, and she started playing the games. We got in contact. She has a lovely German short hair pointer. And a few months ago, she certified as a search and rescue handler with her dog, playing the games and everything. And it just, that's what it's all about, right? That's what it's all about.
That is magic, because that also it's taking it to a whole new level. Now, have you ever used what you've learned through Pro Dog Trainer to help you handle a stretching situation in your own life, or in your personal life, or with what you do? Have you ever used Pro Dog Trainer, or the skills and the concepts that you've learned through that to give you a bit of a hand?
Well, probably every day, right? So like I said, I'm a pretty optimistic person. So stuff doesn't really, probably years ago, I would get a lot more stretch than I do now. I actually don't get stretched that much anymore, because I'm just much more relaxed and optimistic, and being able to know that you can't control the uncontrollables. So that's huge. We just had a vacation, my husband and I, and we rented a car. And 2 days before we were to leave, they canceled our reservation. And we were looking for a specific car, because we were going to a specific car event. So we were going to a Porsche event.
Car would be important for you, wouldn't it? I felt it straight away. I felt it.
We needed to make it the right kind of event. We needed to actually rent the Porsche, right?
I could see, I could hear it already.
And it was funny because my husband, I could see his temperature kind of rise and get a little frazzled. And it's like, wait a minute, let me go on. I'll figure it out. There were like a couple of cars left. No problem. We got it. We had a great vacation in our rented Porsche. But probably a few years ago, that would have stretched me, but I can't control what somebody else does. So I'm not going to get worked up over it anymore. Big life lesson.
And I mean, God, I'm probably going in too deep here, but for me, I watch very similar circumstances all the time. So my dad, he will get very, very stressed and very, very angsty and almost bordering angry, actually, if something isn't as it should be in his plan. So that might be, I don't know, it might be, we've had some building work and the tiles were all laid wrong, and that will make him get really upset about it. He'll get really angsty about it. And for me, it's just, okay, that's wrong. What can we do about it? Let's fix it and let's work out the solution. And either you reduce that price or we buy this and then you cut off that cost and we'll come up with a plan. Like, we can't do anything about it here now. But actually the anger or the upset or the angst or the emotion that my dad will hold is actually very unhealthy. Mm-hmm. So I actually think for your own mental health, for your own physical health, for your own letting go of things is actually a lot healthier. And I'll give you another example. I know that in the past, and I'm sure anyone at Bowerland would have heard this, we've had a slightly angsty relationship with neighbours not liking a dog training centre being here so close or whatever. For me, I've let that go. I'm like, that's cool. I can be nice to the neighbours. I can say hi. I can be polite. I can wave or whatever. I can be very, very polite. But my dad would struggle on that much more. And he would struggle to not hold on to a feeling of like anxiety, I suppose, or upset or whatever it might be. And I think that whether it's the car that you've hired that's not happened, or whether it's the tiles on the floor, or whether it's a neighbour that you don't like, or whether it's the person down the street that has a naughty dog that barks at yours, actually the learning for me that comes from this is being able to move through it through concepts and actually being able to let it go effectively, because that's much better for your physical and mental health. So not actually keeping hold of stuff that's not meant for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got to say the last, the couple of years have been stretching for everybody, right?
Huge.
And having the Game Changer community and everybody very positive and optimistic and helping each other, it's huge. I know it's helped me. I think it's helped tons of people.
I do not know another community like it. And I know that the Sexier and the Squirrel challenge has had over 80,000 people go through that challenge. Lots of great centres that we've gifted to as well, like rehome centres, and some great people have gone through that program. And for me, I think that it is insane the reach that this has had, but the community is very, very special. And I would agree. I've never gone into one of the Absolute Dogs groups and thought, oh my goodness, that energy is nice. I go in there and it's a very, very safe, supportive. It's different to anything else I see on social media. It really is. And people are like, is that real? I'm like, yeah, it's real. They're like, are you always like this sort of energetic? Yeah, that's real. Are you always this positive about training dogs? Yeah, that's real. And do you really manage to live that? And I think, like you're saying there, whether it's the car or whether it's the tiles, it's about taking that into your daily life somehow. So for me, flexing these things into daily life. Okay, I feel stretched. It's annoying. I bought those tiles once. I'm going to have to go buy them again. And that wasn't what we planned. And I also would like a bathroom. So that would be really nice. However, we are where we are. What can we do about it? Let's move in the direction that we can. Let's not see what we can't do. And let's not see the negative. Let's see the positive here. Okay, we can reset all of this. And actually, in the big grand scheme of things, everyone's healthy. And I think you start to take different, I suppose it's a matter of perspective as well. You start to have an attitude, I think, in Absolute Dogs of gratitude rather than expectation. And I think
exactly. And I see that too with, people that are having struggles with their dogs, and you come into the program and, the labels are they're just thrown away, just get rid of all that label stuff and train the dog. And that's the other thing that I love about the games. And I teach all my scent work through games too, is when you talk about it as a game, it's fun. How could it not be?
So different. It's so different because I remember going into Eliza's classroom. Tom was with me. So we went into Eliza's classroom and we said, the teacher was like, they're all a bit quiet today. They've got a test. And Tom was like, surely it's a game. And she was like, no, it's a test. And Tom was like, how about like a fun, quizzy game? And she was like, it's a test. And she was like that sort of headmistress, Mrs. Trunchbull, isn't it? In Matilda. And she was like, really like, it's a test. And yet she was like this like meek and mild, lovely person. But like, she was definite. It was a test. And it's crazy when you say the word test compared to you're playing a fun game, or you're going to do a bit of a quiz, or you're going to do a bit of a mastermind group for coming up with ideas, or like there's so many different ways. Like our language is so powerful, isn't it? Like our language is so powerful. Yeah. And then how we frame it, because often how you frame it is how it's going to go.
Exactly. Yeah. And just framing it in a positive way, it just makes a world of difference. Every time I take Millie to gun dog training, I positively say, we're going to get steadier today. We are
getting steady. I love that though. I love watching you. I love watching you and Millie. You and Millie have the most amazing relationship, and you click like this. Now, you have one of the relationships that a lot of people who are listening to this podcast might be looking at and really, really wanting. What would be, Anne, your top tips as a pro dog trainer, an absolute dogs follower, an academy student, and actually someone who's a really established dog trainer in their own right? What would be some of your dog training tips for someone wanting that enviable relationship that you have with the gorgeous Millie?
So one of the things, and I do this a lot with I do it with my adult dogs, but I do it with my puppies. The first thing I think everyone needs to do is take the pressure off themselves, take the pressure off their dogs. I think when people start training, they tend to put, and that's why I like the games based approach, is they tend to put a lot of pressure on their dogs and themselves, and it kind of sucks the whole joy out of the whole thing. So take the pressure off. Sit down with your dog if you have a yard, if you have a safe place, just sit down with your dog and watch them interact with the environment. They come to give a cuddle, a pet, whatever. Just enjoy their presence and learn about your dog. I think that's the other thing is people forget to do, is to learn about their dog. The dog comes into their home and they have all these set things they have to teach the dog, and it just becomes very mechanical. Just enjoy your dog. Have fun with your dog, play the games. Don't get hung up on, just don't get hung up on, just go play. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you're playing and interacting, you're building relationship. Some of the games I play this with my dogs. Gosh, I played it yesterday. I love playing hide and seek, for example. So in the afternoons, this is really fun. In the afternoons, I scatter feed a lot for a little bit. And the dogs know it. So they race down to this little patch of grass I had to scatter feed. Now, sometimes I have Millie heel all the way down there so she can work on being controlled and calm and things like that. Other times she runs down there as fast as she can. And I run the other way. It's good exercise for me. And I run the other way and try to hide from her before she finds me. Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. Yesterday, Tolly, my Sussex Spaniel, he methodically kind of plods along. He's 10 now. He found me first, actually, because she was racing around trying to find me. But what I learned was, when you play these games like that, you're learning about your dog. I learned that her arousal was really high. She wasn't thinking very clearly. She was assuming where I went, and I didn't go there. She tried to air scent me. That didn't work. She finally put her nose to the ground and tracked me. But I learned a whole lot about my dog in 3 minutes. It was great and super fun.
And I think that's one of the things I love there, Anne, is you are staying super playful too. And let's be honest, super playful and staying fun. It's one of the things I was talking to you about the school, to the school about today. It's about staying young. Like that keeps us young. It keeps it fun. It keeps us fresh. It keeps us in a really positive mindset ourselves.
Yeah, you know what? And for those folks that do sport or professional work in any capacity, we're asking a lot of our dogs. We are asking a ton. There's a lot of stress, there's a lot of pressure. We're looking for results. It's a lot on a dog. And if they're not having fun and just going through the motions, you're just not going to get a good outcome. It's got to be fun for you. It's got to be fun for the dog. And you're going to get that spark. That's what I love, that little spark that the eyes just light up and go, woohoo, let's play again.
Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, like literally the spark is there. Yep. So if you were thinking about pro dog trainers and how many pro dog trainers there are out in the world, I know obviously you're not in the UK, but do you see there's a need and a gap in the market for pro dog trainers?
Oh, I think there's a huge gap. I live in a very, very small town, probably 35,000 people or so, and I'm out in the country a little bit. And I think a fairly traditional town in the US, in that the number one tool that people go to if their dog, say, pulls on a leash is a pinch collar. It's just the norm in the town. And I like to teach and show by example. So I've had students come to my agility classes you're not going to believe this, Lauren, pinch collars and e-collars. And by the end of class, it's gone. I don't force them to do any change, but I just show them and lead. And a couple of classes later, that equipment's gone. And I don't think, the other thing too, is I really try not to blame the owners or, I think most people, like myself, when I first got into dogs, just didn't know. We just didn't have the education that there are other ways to train dogs. There are better ways to train dogs. I owned pinch collars. I owned e-collars. They're gone now. And I'm keeping learning as I go, but I think the more people out there that have this kind of information and this kind of knowledge that they can share, even if, here's the thing, I never thought when I got into PDT that I was going to be teaching, really. I thought about it sort of, but I thought, nah, I'm not going to do that. But I do love to coach and teach. I've taught like over hundreds of students now around the world. I'm doing my first overseas seminar this summer in Australia. I'm super excited about that. So cool. I never thought that I would be doing. Never thought I would be doing any of that. I've got private students I coach, and it could be, if anyone's thinking about jumping in, it could be for your own dog. And then guess what happens? You go for a walk with your friend, and then they start asking, well, how did you do that? Then you start telling, and word of mouth. And yeah, there's definitely a need. Definitely.
So I absolutely love how you've taken concept-based dog training and you've really run with it, both in your general dog training, but also scent, search, rescue work. I think everyone would like to hear a little bit about how you've been spreading the word in the scent world.
Oh gosh. So a lot is by example. So, I show up to training and I do things slightly different. I play a lot of magic hand if I need to heal places, and I play a lot of games just in my general interactions with my dog. I have spoken at a large conference in Washington State at a search and rescue conference. I've been doing some seminars, some scent seminars. All of my training online, like I said, is through games. So it's a games-based approach to tracking. It's a games-based approach to detection. I've actually even done some retrieve classes now and some foundation gun dog classes. And again, especially gun dog, wow. Taking the games-based approach to foundations for that has been super, super fun. Teaching things that are really, really hard, like stimulus control, in a fun way to build relationship has been really, really fun to do and really eye-opener. It's one of the seminars I'll be doing over in Australia. And the results you get, and the dogs, they just light up. You get the extra bounce in their step. The handlers have a little extra bounce in their step. And just showing that it can be done this way. A lot of times, like in scent work in particular, say tracking, you're going to come up with distractions. The dog's going to get distracted. And the traditional response is so predictable, isn't it? It's, yank on the dog and tell him no.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at the dog and asking those questions, why is the dog comfortable in the environment? Are they aware? How about we take that out and work on games, DMT or other games, so the dog novelty games isn't as aware of the environment anymore. And so just pulling the games and putting them into scent work I think it's been really impactful and really helpful for a lot of people.
I absolutely love hearing it. I really do. So I suppose if someone was listening to this podcast and is sat here thinking, oh, I don't know, would I want to do something like this? Or should I ever get involved in something like this, something like pro dog trainer or being part of the academy? Or why or what or how or what would you tell them? What would you tell them? Sat on the fence.
So I tell them to just jump, just do it. Like I said, I waited till the 11th hour before I hit that button on the computer. It was so silly. I should have just done it right away, because just do it. You're going to learn about dog training, but you're going to learn about life, and you're going to learn about so much more than just, like I said, just training a dog. It just really transcends that. And I think, the reason I got involved in Absolute Dogs was relationship deep dive. And that's still, I think, one of the most important, I think it's the most important thing. You have to have a relationship with your dog in order to do anything, really. And that theme goes through all of the academy, goes through PDT, goes through Geek, that theme runs through it. And I think that is why I'm still here. I love it.
I love that. I literally, I love it. And I so believe it to be true as well. And I really do believe it to be true. And I believe that in addition to what you've said, I think the other thing people will really gain through Pro Dog Trainer and the Training Academy, and to be honest, all of the Absolute Dogs courses, is that you learn about yourself, and you learn a lot about how you can stretch and grow you. And I think for me, even though I'm obviously one of the founders of Absolute Dogs, I think it's gone way bigger than what we are now. I think the community and connection is huge. For me, each and every time I play at this, really, because ultimately this is all fun. This is really fun. We learn more about ourselves, and we learn more about what we can do to make not only ourselves, but all of the people that are around us be a little bit better, a little bit. We're always trying to grow. Like you, we want to grow too. So I think that is just such a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah, always learning.
Always learning, always growing. So
always growing.
Thank you, Anne, for joining me. And I know that everybody listening is going to be ecstatic getting to listen about the scent, about the concept training, about growing as a dog trainer, growing generally, all of the ideas and opportunities and transformations that you've seen. I know everyone is going to love hearing that. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. I always enjoy our conversations.
We will definitely have to get another one in. I would love to actually dive in on some of the scent, and I'd love to dive in on some of the search and rescue, and certainly some of the gun dogs. So let's put a date in the diary. That was this episode of the Sex and the Squirrel podcast, that is literally, for me, taking it to a whole new level. We'll see you next time for the Sex and the Squirrel podcast. And in the meantime, stay sexy.
Stop right there, game changer. We have something very exciting to tell you about if you struggle with stressful walks right now.
So pulling your dog, yanking your arm out of its socket, just basically it's painful, right?
Now, it's a struggle that you want to transform. You want to go from pulling on lead like a train to loose leash walking prince or princess, and we've got a solution for you.
It is just £27. It's a mini course that literally is going to be your zero to hero of loose leash walking.
Day by day, we're going to be showing you the games and skills and strategies that you are going to need to implement to transform your dog's leash behaviour in the next 2 weeks.
This is a complete package. You get to keep it for life. Yes, for life. And it's just £27 to you.
Access it anywhere, keep it for life, no equipment required, and all you've got to do is go to absolutedogs.me/stop pulling. And yes, it is just £27, game changers.